when you read mob books, take it with a grain of salt. I was thinking the other day, it was an example of a mob book was John Cobbler's Capone. Came out in the 60s. It was a great book. Mr. Cobbler was a nice man, and he was very kind to me. Everyone copied their Capone information from thereafter from his book. And John was a good source. He had served as a crime reporter, street reporter. He knew what was going on. And his work was accurate. Only come to find out, after he died, that he just went to the FBI. This is before Freedom of Information. I don't know, somehow got the Capone file and just rewrote the Capone file. Nothing wrong with that. Easy day's work. And so you're going to see that a lot. People in the crime world aren't willing to do a lot of fresh, cold research. So they'll just take what is there, or they'll take what's from newspapers and add to a little bit and present a book. I've read books. I read a book about Frank Nitti, and it was everything I had written. Somebody had just come and taken all my words and put them in a book about Frank Nitti. So the St. Valentine's Day Massacre is an example of a story that's been told and retold. And you have to, in the crime writing world, you have to stick to the accepted story. And I don't. I dug a little deeper. I talked to a lot of cops who were still alive back then. Their version of events, and you can check this in your newspapers, is that, for one thing, they could have murdered Moran at any time they wanted. It was a gang with a little teeny blurb. Capone's organization was huge. So, and it really didn't matter to them if you sold beer or didn't sell beer. I mean, Chicago's a big city. There's a lot of business to go around. My understanding is that he was making, Moran and his guys were making synthetic dope out of, I don't understand the process, so I don't know. Talk to somebody, maybe they can explain it. Dry cleaners used a chemical, and he was using that chemical to make synthetic dope with, and he was selling it into the black communities. So the mafia had the corner on that. And they weren't taking competition. Capone was not in the mafia. He was just an Italian guy. The mafia wanted it stopped, and they went in and took care of that as a lesson. The dope was theirs. My understanding also is that there was a bunch of black guys who were in there getting ready to unload the beer that was coming in the truck that never arrived. And if you look at the guys in the pictures, they were the brothers who were there. They were dressed in three-piece suits. These were professionals, the Gutenbergs. They were professional killers. You can hire them for anything. Beat somebody up, kill somebody. They would work both sides at once. So if there was a union that needed protection from a larger union that was trying to take it over, they'd work for them. But if the larger union paid more, they'd walk over and work for them. So these weren't guys who unloaded trucks. It's not what they did. They were punks with guns and blackjacks, and they weren't about to do a day's work. When the bad guys showed up dressed as cops, the black guys were ushered out. There was a back door in the building, in the garage. There was a garage, and to the right, there was a small office. And so they were told to get up. So they ran out the back door, and they killed them all. You're never going to see, by the way, if you, at that time, Chicago, it cost more to clean a suit at a cleaner's in Chicago than anywhere else in North America. And that's because Moran was busy putting them into a protective association. It was just to steal their drugs. That ended. But you can't tell that story because the writer historians in the crime world, they're just not going to accept it. And so they'll tell the accepted story of what's going on. As for the rest of the crime stuff you read, just make sure it's well researched. And when you're reading a gangster's book, written by a gangster. Take that with a grain of salt. They're going to bury hatchets. They're not going to tell you things that they were involved in, mob stuff that they were involved in. They're going to blame it on somebody else. You're never really getting the clearer story here. And again, a lot of these histories are just newspaper clippings pasted together to create a book. So, just a word to the wise.